Hello, sei Jarata. Generation Whiny. What is this exactly? Generation Whiny is one way of describing those people who are constantly complaining for no reason whatsoever. People who moan about everything, they cry at the drop of a hat, and they are offended about just everything. There is a saying about them: people who are easily offended should try being offended more often. Maybe if Generation Whiny would just get out there and live a little, maybe they wouldn't be complaining so much. Once we recognize that we're getting all worked up over nothing, making mountains out of molehills, we gain a new perspective on our lives and our problems and our circumstances. The problem comes if we take our own hysterics too seriously, seeing ourselves as nothing more than products of our environment, victims of inescapable circumstances, fragile and defenseless with no control over our own destiny. This has a name, and it's not Generation Whiny. It is called dependency. The dependent person relies on the help of others. Generation Whiny are extremely fragile. They are not able to do anything on their own. They're always moaning about not being able to get help from anyone else, always relying on government assistance, on outside support. In other words, they cannot stand in their own 2 feet. They are dependent. They take offense in anything. The slightest distasteful comment triggers a flood of tears, outrage, and Facebook proclamations. In fact, as far as they are concerned, they could call Facebook the Wailing Wall. It is as if they only have that way of communicating, by crying all the time. That's how they can express themselves, by whining and whimpering. People who are stuck in this vicious circle, they are endlessly complaining about everything. But if I don't complain, nothing changes. This is a favorite idea of them. It's the only way is to complain. However, they are wrong. Complaining does not solve anything if it's not directed at the right person. There is a difference between complaining and taking action. You can take a look at episode 90 of the series Hello, Sei Charata. Go to charata.se/hello90. If you have a problem with a customer service at a shop, you can go and talk to the manager and explain what went wrong, what were expectations, and what can be improved. This is not whining, this is not crying, this is taking action. And taking action is very different from complaining. If you're talking in my ear and I have nothing to do with that, that's complaining. A lot of people lack the assertiveness required to take action, and they end up getting swallowed up by rage. They unleash their angry rants to their friends who have nothing to do with that situation. That is the whiny way, the only option for someone who depends on external intervention to be solving all their problems because they are not able to face the challenges that life throws at them. Dependent people focus their efforts on finding someone to blame for their situation. Dependent people are not interested in improving, in growing, in learning. All they want is an excuse for their failures. They want something to be able to justify themselves. So they blame other people. The independent person resolves their problems all by themselves. So that's the next stage. The independent person, the person who has better habits. They have more resources at their disposal. They know how to deal with their own problems. They don't need to go around complaining or crying out for help. They don't blame others for the problems in their lives. They assume responsibility for their own success and failures. The independent person is focused on himself because he's an independent person. It makes no difference whether the government is left-wing, right-wing. They don't care. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if the economy is booming or if the economy is in crisis. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if it's rainy or if it's sunny, if people love them, if people hate them. It's all irrelevant because they are independent. As far as they're concerned, what they can achieve has nothing to do with environment, circumstance, context, other people. Their focus is entirely on individual development. That's how they can improve, on their skills and the means they can acquire to improve their performance. However, a word of warning: people who start out from the bottom and make it big often see poverty as a sign of failure. They say, if I made it, anyone can. People who were once shy and now they are more outgoing, they sometimes are the same. They blame the people who are still shy. Anyone who has managed to overcome adversity, getting out of the dependency phase and arrive to the independence, they look with a little bit of contempt to those who are left behind. They feel a little bit of resentment, bitterness towards these people. In the psychological terms, this is known as projection, when an independent individual feels a little bit of contempt to the dependent individual. So here comes phase number 3. The independent person overcomes the resentment and opts for cooperation. This is the highest stage, which is interdependence. This is a brilliant concept from the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and this book is one of the works which are a foundation for our course, Personal Development. Over the course of their personal development, the interdependent person has come to understand that even though they are not dependent on others, they can still achieve much more by working together, by collaborating. They can offer help whenever they can, even without expecting anything in return. Because when they help, everybody wins. Society as a whole improves, grows in empathy, solidarity, inspiration, and confidence. The dependency stage, which is symbolized by Generation Whiny, is a passing phase. When we complain, we're basically asking to be rescued. People who complain, they're trying to communicate that they have a need that has not been satisfied. They are trying to explain that they are feeling disrespected, ignored, undervalued. And that's why they complain, because they believe that their whining is justified. They depend on other people to get a sense of identity, to get by in their daily lives. And by investing in personal development, they will reach the independence stage, in which they are free from this prison of dependency. But the journey doesn't end here. True progress comes when they reach the next stage of the personal development by becoming interdependent and learning to work together with other people and build better relationships. This is a life lived from the abundance perspective, and this is where the greatest progress is made. Here in Arata Academy, we have a course about this journey, and we will do this together. And you can join us now by going to arata.se/personal development.